country, amongst many other things, is the need for us to be loyal. You need to pick a side and be loyal. And so what you've just unpacked now, unintentionally so, I think you were just talking about your loyalty to your team, despite the pain and the abuse that it subjects you to. But it's what we're calling for people to be loyal to that which sustains them. I mean, South African products sustained us during this lockdown period. Many other countries, especially in Asia and in the EU, went into lockdown before we did. So when people were piling up and I don't know, stockpiling, I think that's the right word. When people were stockpiling and were buying in bulk, and we saw the queues on TV of people in the country panic buying, we did not necessarily run out of anything, because a lot of the products that carried us during that time are made in South Africa. And that is what, as Palace of Can we stand for. So I don't know what
I think
is on that, yeah.
Yeah, I think the question of loyalty to the flag, loyalty to South Africa is something that we must always encourage. And maybe I should kick off the conversation as Lights Cities to pass our deepest condolences,
of course,
to both the family of Ahmad Dango, who was my mentor, my former CEO, and someone that was that showed loyalty to Madiba, loyalty to South Africa, and then of course our condolences to Dade George Bizos, someone who was very loyal to the Constitution, someone that was very loyal to South Africa. In fact, I was listening to Reverend Chikane talking about how Dade Bizos was loyal to principle, to the Constitution, that at a time that South Africa, or the South African government, democratic South African government, wanted to pass the secrecy bill, he stood firm. And Reverend Chikane said, it's one thing to stand up against your enemies. It's quite another to stand up against your friends. Okay. And I think that's demonstration of that. So, yeah, and it's the best thing that we can ever do. So to South Africa, I think the loss of Dade George Bizos is a reminder that we owe it to South Africa to be proudly South African. And we also owe it to South African jobs. We owe it to South African industry that we continue to buy South African, to try our best to always make sure that you look at what you're buying and buy carefully and not buy recklessly. And I think we can only succeed in that front if we are people who stand firm behind South Africa.
No, thanks for that. I want to take you back a bit and join you in passing our sincere condolences to both the Dango and the Bizos families. In fact, I saw an interesting quote that you posted, and that's how I picked up that Mr. Dango was your mentor. That Ahmad Dango was your mentor. So condolences to you as well, and to everyone at the foundation who was close to both individuals who contributed a lot to this country, and the reason why we are where we are. If you will allow me, my team shared this with me. And if you will allow me, it's a quote from you, but
sure.
If I can just read it for all those who are on the line. You said in your response to the loss of Ahmad Dango earlier this week that he saw in me something that I could not see, and he always saw a glimmer of light. This thing is disturbing me. Sorry, man. And he always saw a glimmer of light through whatever storm clouds were gathering. This feels like the saddest and heaviest day of my professional life. So that's how much he meant to you. That's how much he contributed. Because I think all of us were given an opportunity by someone. And I think he was there to you.
Yeah, that's the key to how we should understand Dr. Ruel Khoza and Dade Bonang Mohale when they say lift as you rise.
Yeah.
Because what Ahmad Dango did was to try and give me as many opportunities as possible. And that glimmer of hope, by the way, even as the storms were gathering around Madiba's passing. By the time Madiba passed, I was ready for that moment to help navigate that process. And I think if there's anything that we need to do is to always just try as South Africans. It doesn't matter how bad we can look. It doesn't matter how bad the situation might be. But being South Africans, we've gone through the worst. We have conquered through the worst. I see that Joel Smith is on the line, is also watching. I was telling them something when they came to visit with Siyakolisi at the foundation. In fact, I read a letter to them, a letter that I like quoting from, where Madiba is writing to his two daughters, Auzinzile, Auzenane, and right in the middle of the letter, he says, "Don't worry about me now. I'm happy. I'm well, full of strength and hope." And I think Ahmad carried that hope everywhere he went, that it doesn't matter what's happening, he will then carry that hope. And I think that's something we should all just hold on to as South Africans. We can be better, and we are better.
No, that's good. I think there's a lot that can be learned from individuals like that. They had a different struggle to the one we have. I think the biggest struggle that all of us are confronted with as South Africans. I know it's a global pandemic that has brought about more economic hardships, but even before the pandemic hit us, the economic hardships in this country were at an all-time highest. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the GDP numbers and the unemployment numbers that came out for the period January to March, even before we got into the hard lockdown, we were already in trouble. So I think our struggle is different, and that's why a campaign like ours calls on South Africans to take up a struggle of a different nature and to lead through their purchasing decisions. In fact, the payoff line in the campaign that we rolled out on the 3rd of July, we call the campaign is Game Time, because it's about saying South Africans, it's time for us to now all act and contribute. But the payoff line says, our everyday decisions shape our future. So in our context, it's about our everyday purchasing decisions shape our future. And so I think we need to learn from those stalwarts who came before us, who helped present us with this freedom that we enjoy today. But this freedom without the economic freedom for our people remains, I think, a very painful situation to witness. And that's why a campaign like ours is critical. And I don't know what your views are.
Yeah, it's sad. Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems that we have as a country is the issue of inequality. To be declared internationally as the South Africa being the most unequal country in the world is not a nice badge to hold next to your name. And we must do everything possible to help build South Africa into a more equal country. When we hosted the UN Secretary General, Mtate Guterres, who then said that some say loudly that we are in the same boat, but it's not true, because some have these speedboats, whereas others are just holding onto these rafters that are just about to sink. And we need to do everything possible to try and do that. In fact, I just saw that someone else who joined us is Sasekane, and on the 18th of July, I was at Ikageng, and we were hosting both Siya Kolisi, Rachel Kolisi, and the president for a conversation with young people. And the president during that time said that it's important that we all do everything possible to act in solidarity with the poor. So I think what Proudly South Africa is trying to do is to ensure that each one of us does everything in your power to lead in your own corner. Madiba once said that, speaking to nurses, and he said, never station in life be a leader. If you are changing linen, change it with pride.
Sure.
And let's not celebrate mediocrity. Let's try to be better
Yeah.
people who want quality for their people. But also, and this is a message to those
Sure.
entrepreneurs, and to say that as you promote stuff, as you produce material, try your best to produce the best quality,
Sure.
so that those who are joining to come and buy from you, buy quality. They enjoy coming back, because they are not paying the highest rent for the least product.
Sure.
And I think that's what we should try to do as South Africans, entrepreneurs out there. And I think that thing is something that we should always try. So sometimes you go to a shop and you try buy South African. You can see that the quality is good. You then want to negotiate the price so down.
Yes.
By the way, may I declare that I used to fall in that, because I have people who are watching who will
Please.
just out me to say, but Luena, you used to negotiate. I stopped negotiating these prices, because I realized that it's easier to do these things where you can keep negotiating, or you pay the fair price.
Yeah.
And if you can pay more, even pay more, so that those people can then do the work that they need to do back home.
But interestingly, the most expensive of things that consumers buy, they buy in places where they don't negotiate. Imagine, there's
Precisely.
a diamond box somewhere in some mall.
Precisely.
Where those who are fortunate to have enough resources to can go shop there. They don't negotiate there. They go in, they buy whatever it is at whatever price. And in some instances, that this is the joke that I love sharing with people, that in some instances, you in your heart and in your head, you're supporting a designer from France or Italy, but that garment is made in China. So we are also getting jobs from China in one way or another, and so I support what you are advocating for, that we stop negotiating, we stop saying to these guys, how much can you shave us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a comment there, but Sello, you negotiated this one. Yes, I did. I no longer negotiate our baton. I did declare, or I
And you
negotiated
declared,
in the
right?
past. I declared. So don't try to out me now, because actually. But the point that is important also in what you're saying in terms of being a conscious buyer, is that our children tend to be the ones who also help us being conscious buyers. So I always say that if we instill it in our children, it means that you've secured the future to be better. In other words, you try and instill a principle, a value that you believe is so important in the little ones, because once you do so, it becomes easier for them in future to just live what they have seen.
And
So
fact,
that's important.
No, very important. I want to put it. One of the most interesting conversations I've had during this year is with the CEO of the JSE, Leila Fori, who said to me she lived in Australia for the past few years, and she only just came back home now to take up this role at the JSE. But what she witnessed when she was in Australia was the fact that the sense of economic patriotism is so huge that you can feel it even when you walk down the streets. When you walk into places where there's trading happening, whether it's a mall, it's a shopping center, it's a small shop, everywhere you go, Australians look for so their equivalent of Pali South African is Australian made. So they look for products with the Australian made sign or wording, because it was instilled in them. That campaign has been there for years. In fact, when Proudly SA was formed, and the decision was taken. In fact, I want us to talk about that. I want to tell you something interesting about where Pali South African comes from. But at that time, when the campaign was formed, it was modeled around Australian made, the Australian made campaign. When I saw the research, there was a fridge study that was done before this campaign opened its doors and became operational. And it was a study that looked at various buy local campaigns all over the world. And the model chosen was the Australian made campaign, because it was that brilliant and it had been there for a decade or two at the time. But because those who were kids at that time are now the adults, and that
Yeah.
that culture,
Yeah.
they grew up with that culture. So I'm just supporting what you're saying. To say Australia is a classic example of a country where that sense of patriotism was instilled in them as kids, and now purchasing decisions that are made in those households, which are informed by the kids. I know that in my household, if my kids don't want it, it's useless to buy it because they will not eat it and it will just go to waste. So a lot of our purchasing decisions as adults are informed by what the kids consume. But also, then, if you educate them now, it makes them better adults in that the investment then pays off much later and for generations to come because they then instill the same culture in their kids. And so then the economy and the country benefits over a long-term period. So I agree fully with you. Fully with you.
Yeah. You know, we tend to not realize the value of how the teachings of today tend to inform those who are still to be born to make
Yeah.
different decisions and better decisions in most
Sure.
instances. And I always say to the NMF team, and in fact, even at home, I would say that if there's a gift that we need to be giving in the future, is lessons that we've learned so that our little ones and their children's children don't have to go through the painful journeys that we've gone through. And proudly South Africa, I always say that I don the flag with pride because every time I go out, it doesn't matter what kind of problems that my country has, but
Yeah.
I always know that South Africans are the best people to have on your side. And I'm hoping that we will continue to support proudly South African markets, proudly South African products, and to do what you're saying, where all it needs is for a child to see the brand
Yeah.
and know that that's my future right there.
True. People are agreeing with us. I see someone saying, Lizel is saying, yes, please. So there is affirmation that is coming from those who have joined into the call. I want to talk about where the campaign comes from. I think talking to you is so interesting. I think the foundation is in such good hands, and I'm glad that
Oh, thank you.
we were able to reach out to you. I mean, we've only been
Thank
speaking
you.
for the last 21 minutes or so, but your sense of patriotism gives me a sense that the campaign is the foundation is in good hands. And I'll tell you why. I want to link your patriotism and your leading this campaign, this foundation, with why I'm saying you are probably one of the best people to talk to, especially now that we are about a month or so away from Proudly South African turning a full 20 years. We were formed as Proudly South African out of a job summit convened in 1998 by President Nelson Mandela. He convened a
Aha.
job summit similar to what President Ramaphosa did in 2018. So it was interesting that 20 years later, 20 years after Mandela convened his own job summit, President Ramaphosa convened a similar job summit. And one of the outcomes of that 1998 job summit was for a buy local campaign to be formed. Because at the time it was about how do you then build on the democracy that had just been attained, build on this democratic government that has just come into power by making sure that you start creating jobs. Look at labor-intensive industries, labor-intensive sectors that can absorb a lot of our people. Because I think that we still have the same battle, but I think at that time it was seen as one of the biggest challenges was the fact that a lot of our people were not skilled. And so manufacturing across the whole value chain and across all industries that are subsectors of manufacturing have the ability to absorb a lot of the unskilled and the semi-skilled and those who are not necessarily very, very literate. And so it was decided that a buy local campaign should be formed. And that is how 2.5 years later, Proudly South African opened its doors because of the initiative taken by Tata Madiba at the time. So, like Happy is saying there, it's Proudly says Mandela's baby. And it's a Mandela baby. We don't necessarily talk about this a lot, but I think it's one of those things that we will celebrate when we get to the 20-year celebration that we're planning for March next year to celebrate 20 years of the campaign being in existence. That's one of the things we want to talk about. But we would also like to get to that point with success stories, real success stories of what the campaign has achieved, industries that we were able to save, jobs that we were able to retain, and that is what drives us, together with the team that I work with. That is what drives us. Every time we hear of a company that is
Yeah.
15 people and is about to close its doors, and all they need is an order, we bang on all doors. We used to have friends in one of the biggest retailers, and it said that 2 days ago they sent us a letter to say they're folding and relatability is taking over some of their assets, which is Edcon. Edcon came to the party a lot of times as the first clothing retailer to join Proudly South African. We would always call on them every time we heard of a factory that is in need of an order, because if they don't get that order, they're going to close down. We would go and knock on their door. And a lot of time they came through for us. And that's how you save jobs. And I'm just using that as an example, just to demonstrate the importance of us choosing to walk into an Edcon or an Edgar store than an H&M and a Zara, where the money just leaves the country, where the orders never come to South African factories. And that is what we advocate for. I mean, it's H&M, Cotton,
Yeah,
that we have taken on a lot. And the Madiba legacy is about that, is about making
yeah.
sure that we empower others through giving them the tools for them to sustain themselves.
The one of the comments from Joel Smith, who reminds us of the side effects of COVID. Something that we actually tend to forget, that even before COVID, this sense of being proudly South African, buying South African, was not that deeply entrenched. And post COVID, or rather even post lockdowns that we've had, the hard lockdown and as it was softening, we now need to be supporting even more of South African companies, because every time you hear people that are being paid 40% of their salaries, 50% of their salaries, you know that there's suffering that then comes with that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to always try our best to be embracing of those who are losing jobs, and to try avoid it. Avoidance of that is important. And Joel's point about the post-lockdown economic side effects is that we then have a responsibility, in fact, to making sure that we grow those industries. Because it's only when we grow these industries that we can then save jobs. I always say that when traveling through South Africa, I'm currently in KZN. We did a distribution through Each One Feed One to communities, and we visited a community that is looking after vulnerable children. Some children who've been raped, who've been abused in some way, and all that. And I remember thinking at some point, I wonder how many South Africans are aware of the depth of hurt that's there. But that depth of hurt has escalated even more because of the lockdowns that we had, gender-based violence that has always been there. And to be proudly South African means that you must out those things, so that it's not just about saving jobs, but it's also about saving the job of being.
Yeah.
In other words, a person just being. Let me be. A child must just be, without having to always look behind their backs about who's following them. And I think that's the thing that South Africa needs to just be watching, that we must out those things that are making us not be proud to don the flag that we want to don. Unfortunately, I wanted to wear my flag cap, and my advisor saw fashion, said no, that's not gonna work, and because you have people like Joel on the line who are critical about what you wear, so I need to be conscious. Also, B is watching, and they'll be saying, but that doesn't go with the look. And I think if we are to make Madiba proud 20 years later, is for each one of us to take it upon ourselves that we become this values-based society. By values, we mean have a sense of solidarity with those who are losing their jobs. Make sure that we feed those who need food on their tables. Which is why we launched Each One Feed One, for example. That if each one of us helped another, no one should go hungry.
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect just grows on, and we just have to make sure that we try our best to do that. And when you see the flag flying up high, declare your loyalty to it, but not just this blind loyalty. It's loyalty to the flag, not to its leaders necessarily.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So it should always be about, I am for South Africa, but those who lead us well will get my support.
Yeah,
And that's those who produce good products will get my
to get your
support.
support.
Those who make sure that they give us, they give me a product that is equal to the quality of that product in terms of money that I have to pay will get my support. And we must then put everything behind that to support them.
And so I want you to be naughty a bit and talk about that that head that you wanted. So you that at least you are not planning to come wearing a Chiefs makarapa. You know, that would have been something else. If it was the case of Chiefs makarapa, it would be a different story. But
I must tell you,
I'm inviting trouble. So let's
you
move
know,
on.
Tiamo invited me to this conversation, and he was clear that this is not about Chiefs. And by the way, I can't post anything now. Anything I post, people someone has to say, do you remember that Chiefs lost? I mean, Tabiso Chauke, for example, they haunt me with that. It's do you remember that Chiefs lost? I'm proudly South African, and I'm still proudly Kaizer Chiefs. Proudly Kaizer Chiefs. And this, look, if you remember Ntate Panyaza Lesufi, I think I invited him to join us. I hope he did. He was the only Swallows fan with my. There is Joel saying the sky is the limit.
Yes,
whatever you say, this remains the only sign that matters. It's okay though. Nana, you can laugh as much as you want. Truth is, we remain Amakosi for life.
Yeah, no, we wish you luck. I think the only thing in fact, let me talk about football before I go back to the point I wanted to make. I'll come back to it. It's you know, in terms of numbers, if you think of Kaizer Chiefs as an institution and the numbers it has, I mean, I was joking with the guys at the office earlier today, was that you know, the happiness index of the country was affected in a big way. So if there's anyone who maintains the happiness index for the country, it was but because of numbers. And where I'm going with it is that imagine if all those Kaizer Chiefs jerseys that we see out there were all made locally. I mean, Happy had a conversation with Robert Marawa on this Local Friday speech a couple of weeks ago. And that is what the intention was to try and put it out there to different sporting codes to say they have the power to ensure that they give back and they contribute to those who support them and spend their money on them on a weekly basis, who invest such emotions in them. I mean, there are households where the poor kids know that if dad's favorite team does not win, it's rough in that household. Not in a bad way, but it's rough in that he does not eat, he does not play with them. Like, it changes the mood completely. So when people invest so much by way of emotions and money, I mean, to go to a soccer match outside of COVID when things are normal, a lot of people spend a lot of their hard-earned cash to attend soccer games, etc. And so what we're looking for is that loyalty and the giving back from. We're not saying they must buy jerseys and just give them away, but they must just make sure that as they negotiate the sponsorships, with their respective technical sponsors and kit sponsors, that one of the conditions that they place on those sponsorships should be that even if the technical way is not necessarily made locally because of one or another reason, which is what we were told by Sascock a year ago when we spoke to them, but that the supporters' jerseys, the replica jerseys that are worn by supporters, are made locally. Imagine how much volume could just be pushed by Chiefs jerseys, by Pirates jerseys. The minute you throw in all of us, I mean, as the 20 Sundown supporters, if we all buy our jerseys locally like we are, because the Sundowns jerseys are made locally. And I'm using them as an example because it is possible.
All 15 of you.
Yeah,
if all 15 of you.
By 5, all 15 of us. So imagine.
Yeah, all 15 of you.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a So imagine, though, if it was Kaizer Chiefs, if it was Orlando Pirates that were doing that, how many factories would be supported? Because it's about factories It's about the value chain, the raw materials that are used to make those jerseys. So we just need everyone from decision makers, captains of industry, and all the way up to us as ordinary consumers who buy for our household to start making those purchasing decisions in favor of the country, and we will then start seeing the change, and that's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
you know, the 1 year we had a situation where we had one of our stakeholders produce Mandela Day T-shirts, and unbeknown to them, the material that had been used was from China. So I get a call from my second in command, Dimpo Munyaman, who says, "This is the situation. We have to make a call," and we made a call to pull them, not to sell them. And that year, this could have been 2019, last year, I think. I might be wrong. It could even be 2018, and we ended up not selling them. The most of the time, we try our best to make sure that we support local, and I think it means that even an NGO, remembering that we're just a small NGO. We just like Sundowns with your 15 people. It's like we that a small NGO which then try to support local as much as possible, because it's only if we are conscious buyers that we can change attitudes around the country. And I see people are now reflecting on what their parents used to do. Some say that their mothers never used to cook when Chiefs loses, and you know their uncles would be very angry if the team loses. And I think it's a reality that I have to face. I have to tell you that after this last loss, the recent loss, I painted half the wall. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but fortunately, my wife got home and she was happy with the job that I did, and that's what mattered. She said, "No, I think it was a good job, you know." But I ended up just painting, and I just took this red paint, put it on one wall, and to just take out. I did. But this paint, I think, you know, it's one of those things that you then just try your best to relieve yourself of the pain of loss. And I can imagine if one feels like this about just soccer, how many then feel about other aspects of life, including losing jobs because of COVID, the effects of COVID, losing jobs because we are not supporting South African. I was listening to a program on SAFM early this week, where they were talking about depression. Our numbers are looking bad, you know, in terms of depression in the country.
I can imagine.
Joblessness has added to that. So I think it's an important thing that we try our best to save people from having to commit suicide, for example. I went to one of our psychiatric hospitals last year, I think it was. We were there with the IDC to help with making sure that the environment is okay for the staff members as they help our patients. And when I was there, I was reminded of a letter that Carter wrote, the photographer. I remember the photographer who was there when they photographed a child with that bird. Do you remember that it was in one of the war zones? And Carter then wrote a letter after he came back, and he had no money, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the letter in front of me. He says something up to the effect that I find myself depressed. I find myself with no money just to buy airtime, no money to pay for school fees, and maybe it's time that I go and join my friend.
Sure.
I'd rather die than live the way I am now. And unfortunately, the situation in South Africa at the moment, we find ourselves with people who are walking around with these letters that are
And with
prepared but
those
have not
thoughts,
been executed. Yeah,
yeah,
they've not been executed, and
yeah,
I'm hoping that with our actions we can relieve the pain, we can relieve them of the pressure, the stress, by just buying products which are local, by just
and
buying products that they produce. And maybe we went to Limpopo as part of each one, to Mpumalanga 2 weeks ago as part of each one
mhm,
feed one. We met this 70-plus-year-old who has her house was destroyed by a storm. We've now been able to raise funds to build her a house. And so I was there to look at the situation. It's Kahoi. We're in Kahoi for that. And while we were there, we see that the old lady had been knitting meseme,
okay, yeah,
those mat that you put on the
yeah,
floor, but using recycled material. So we say to her, by the way, we would like to buy these. She didn't attach value to them. She actually said, it takes me hours, weeks on end to do one, but then we need to be buying from them. We bought a couple of them after a
mhm,
while of persuading her that she could sell them. And we just gave her money to say, no, you can take this. And then we took two of them. Similarly, with an old man who was doing the spoon using wood,
yeah.
and we just came in there, just bought them. So I think it's important that we try our best to see it, look at someone who doesn't realize that they have a value in their hands,
Yeah,
in their
yeah,
hands, and we
yeah.
buy stuff of them so that we can then avoid them being depressed and not being able to support themselves.
But also remember, just with that little action, you have made them realize that they can actually feed themselves. Especially because with
Precisely.
us, there's a concept of black tax that is a reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have just taken two of her hands, but that two might have been used to feed. The money from that two might be benefiting 6, 7 people in her family and in her extended family, because that's a reality for many South Africans. So when you talk about retrenchments, as an example, simply because people are in industries that are thriving on the back of imports. I mean, think of the poultry industry. The minute you buy imported chicken, and that's something that we all buy, and that's why it's one of my favorite examples. Every time you buy an imported chicken, you're taking away jobs from the farmer who grows the chicken. You're taking away jobs from the processing house. You're taking away jobs from the packaging house. You're taking away jobs from the logistics guy. So across the whole value chain, there are jobs that are lost. And each one of those jobs represents a household with possibly extended family that depend on that one income. So the concept of breadwinner in our context is real. The black tech situation is a reality for many of us, especially those of us, I think, in this generation. Maybe the next generation will have it slightly better, but we have to start making it better for them now. At some stage, someone must break the poverty cycle. And
Yeah.
it's in our hands. I mean, if you think of the size of this black middle class, the size of the middle class, and not just talking black, but the middle class in its entirety in this country, the purchasing power that is in the hands of the black middle class in their households, as well as in the entities that they've been entrusted with, just like we have been entrusted to run businesses. And I like the example you gave about the foundation making a choice not to sell t-shirts because the material came from China. Imagine if that was the thinking across the whole of corporate South Africa, what it would do for industries that are under pressure. I mean, we are talking to the banks now, and we're saying to them, every time you buy furniture that is locally made. We're talking to the independent schools. I mean, the independent schools that literally open new schools every other month. And what we're saying to them is, every time you open up a new school, the desk that our children are going to sit on, because we pay you so much money for our kids to be in your school, should come from local sources. Help us, your customers, to stay employed so that we can in turn come and support your business. And that is the thinking that we want to inculcate into purchasing decision makers, into captains of industry. Because just with the size of spending in the private sector and in our households, leaving government then comes into the picture later on to seal the deal, we can really turn this economy around, and we will have a better country to pass on to the next generation. Because the problem is that we are not breaking the poverty cycle, and what we're going to hand over to our youth, to our children, and the state of the economy, the state of the country is very worrying. And so I applaud you and your team for that stance and for that culture of saying you local first, because you are ultimately the beneficiaries of those purchasing decisions that you make.
Yeah, I think that's the critical point that we need to keep hammering home, is that the beneficiary ends up being local. And including in just in a tuck shop where you find that you have products that you cannot even recognize what they are. You have to always ask yourselves, where does this packet of biscuits come from?
Yeah.
You find that it was produced in some illicit market, and then it comes through into the foreign-owned tuck shops, particularly. And you don't know this brand, and I think it's an important one that we need to then be hammering home, that each one of us must be a conscious buyer. But you know, another critical point that you're raising now, that you just raised now, is how I saw that Ashraf Garda just joined us, being a champion South African, as he is that we need to try to go beyond just championing by word, but championing by actions too. That one lead, not again, not just by words, that we lead us, and you are called my leader, my chief, I think you said. All that we need to now be changing to, how do I lead in whichever portfolio that I've been given, station that I'm occupying at the moment. So I think let's just lead by even just knowing this is a fake product. I shouldn't be buying it, and let's not do it. And that way, you change the mentality in your household. You hopefully can change the mentality in around the country. I see that one of my friends from Mexico has just joined us, Pamela,
nice.
and it's good to have Mexicans also joining us in this conversation.
Welcome, Pamela. We must tell Pamela though that one of the things that you have done as a foundation is in July at some point, my team told me this, you received a Ford Ranger made in South Africa, assembled in Silverton, where the majority of people employed in that factory, in that plant, come from my township, Mamelodi. One of the biggest employers growing up, and I've told this story many times on many public platforms, was what was at the time known as SEMCA. A lot of the people in my township worked for SEMCA, and over time it became Ford South Africa. And so the Ford Ranger that you received is made in Silverton by my uncles and aunts and neighbors and cousins and friends, and it's as simple as that, as making sure that across your whole value chain, there is a benefit that accrues to the economy in one way or another, whether it's buying the smallest of items. I mean, you gave an example of biscuits, and someone said those biscuits are from Hong Kong. Whether it's those biscuits or it's a big ticket item like the Ford Ranger, that there are jobs that can be supported just through making those purchasing decisions. So, well done on that.
And in fact, you know, it's a fascinating thing. When I was in Mexico, and Pamela, being on the line, can attest to this. So as we're driving around, she's showing me some places in Mexico, and then I keep seeing the brand of Corona. In fact, Corona the beer.
Yes.
And so Pamela says, it's not the best tasting beer or something like that. And this is her, but then she recommended another local range of drinks. And it tells you her pride in her local products. She took me to a local ice cream maker, for example, who has been there for a couple 100 years. That they produce the best Mexican ice cream. It tells us if Pamela in Mexico can do it, who are we in South Africa not to try do that? In every aspect that we do, including the car that you were referring to. The car is called Mandela. Because actually it was, you'll see it driving around soon, doing the each one feed one kind of work. Because it was supposed to be called Amandla, to say power to the people, power to the South Africans, and hopefully this will again empower South Africans to say, we can do it, support local, support locally produced cars too.
Mandla, straight from Mamelodi. I like that. I like Mandla from so now that you've given us a light-hearted moment, which had an educational element to it, with the example you gave about what Pamela did by taking you to local joints, ensuring that you consume that which is locally made. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you like locally. We all know you as a thought leader. Game changer of note, and I have the utmost respect for your craft and your talent and what you're achieving with the foundation. But I want to get to know the other side of you, and I think the people will enjoy the conversation. So now that we know that you do indulge in beverages of some sort, which one is your favorite South African beer?
Actually, I don't drink alcohol at all. No, not at all. And in fact, the reason Pamela was showing me was just driving around saying, this is our local beer. So I've kind of stopped drinking Stone. I know that Joel will be disappointed about this, because wherever we went, I'd say, to him and Sia, please just Stone it. Just give me Stone ginger beer. But my best drink ever, if you want to treat me, just give me Oros.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Just give me Oros. It's a proudly South African product, and I would enjoy that to no end. So Oros is a thing. So, I just I'm one of the cheapskates you can find. In fact, one of the things that Ahmad said when I succeeded him, he jokingly said, "Well, he's filling my shoes." And I said, "No, but that's impossible for me to fill in your shoes, because at least I have style." Ahmad's shoes there was no style to them at all.
Oh wow!
So there's a question that's being asked by Ausheb, where I was born. I was born in Klerksdorp, in Kuma, in a township, a mining township called Kuma, and grew up with a single parent. My mother was a domestic worker who had 6 children. Very humble beginnings. My mother had 6 children, lost 4 of her children, and so I was born of a really strong woman. So I that's why I guess I have the simplest of tastes, but also very sophisticated in my approach to life. That you try your best to then just add some level of sophistication.
Oh, that's quite good. I see the comment though about your choice. You are being attacked for your choice. They're saying you are that uncle that finishes the kids' Oros. No?
Well, I must say that whatever happens, Oros has to be at home. So I once came home with this 5-liter Oros. So because it was on some special, I bought this 5-liter. Next time I went back, I bought another one. So my wife protested. Hi man, nke tlo tlala ka oros fela mo. So, 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 so I'm one of those who are happy to just have oros over and over. And now it's only two of us who are having it at home, me and my son. So you can imagine, we never run out. Because
you won't run out.
Oh yeah.
So if, let's say I was to invite you, because now I'm thinking of inviting you to my house. I see you are not an expensive one. You won't come and ask for shampoo. Is it Ting, Sam, or Pap? Which one is, if you were to choose between those three?
You said, can you do dumpling?
Ting, Sam, or Pap?
Okay, Ting is my best choice. Kemotswana, of course. So Ting will be my treat.
And if you are in KZN, is it Devon Banichao or Ikota?
I just had Banichao. About an hour ago, I had a Banichao.
Oh, that's nice. So you see, I know you're simplistic, really.
Simple touches most of the time go a long way.
That's good. And a favorite local holiday spot?
I'd say Mpumalanga. I think it's the least sold province, and put me anywhere in a game reserve in Mpumalanga, and I'm the happiest guy alive. By the way, while we are at it, last week we went to Mpumalanga, or 3 weeks ago, we went to Mpumalanga for each one feed one work with Jerry Mabena, and the NMF team. So as part of this thing, I slept unintentionally, by the way. I'm told that I planned it like that. I slept on this side of the Kruger, but I was going that side of the Kruger.
Yeah.
So I had to drive through Kruger to get to my destination, Kahoi. So this time, I guess because I did an operation, I don't need glasses anymore. So I can see the future, by the way. I can see tomorrow. Wow. Just right here. So as we're driving, first thing I spot, and I blame it on my new pair of eyes, because then I saw a leopard. I've never seen a leopard in Kruger. And it was quite a treat. And of course, from that point onwards, Jerry Mabena just outdid himself, because it was animal after animal. For that hour that we drove through to get to the other side, Kahoi, so put me in Kruger National Park, I'm the happiest chappy.
So you ended up being a lovely drive through the Kruger. It sounds like.
Of course. Of course, it was so pleasant, but then we were dealing with heaviness at the end, because we found a family of these two boys, 19-year-old who is in grade 10, lost both parents, and his aunt who used to look after them died last year, and they don't have a home. So fortunately, again, by the time I got back to Joburg, we had raised money to help build them a home.
Oh, that's good.
So that those are things that, and again, the contractor said they will use all local products and try their best to make sure that the bricks, everything is produced locally.
True Madiba style. So the Madiba spirit lives on. Well done, my brother. Well done. You make
No, thank you very much.
So last one before we get cut off, because this course can only accommodate a chat for 60 minutes. If we do get cut off whilst we're still talking about this one, can you please just come back on? I'll start the chat again and you can just join in, just for us to finish the conversation. What is a hidden talent that you think you have, but those of us who see you on public platforms, on TV, on radio, in meetings, have never been exposed to, besides painting the wall red when your team loses? Because we can see you are painting the Chiefs logo. So we understand what you're trying to do. That's why your wife was, she never liked that Chiefs logo on the wall anyway. So she was outside of that. What else is a hidden talent that we were not exposed to?
I think it's a talent that hasn't come out also. In other words, I don't know if I have it. It's to play a music instrument. And one day, I always say that before I die, I want to play a violin. So it's a hidden talent, even hidden from me too. So hopefully I will one day play a violin. because it's
It's still hidden in you
so
too.
hopefully, yeah, it's also hidden in me. So it's not hidden to you only, to
Yeah.
me too. So hopefully, I'll play a violin one day.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And lastly, which talented South African? I mean, you travel the lengths and breadths of this country more than most of us. Which talented South African have you come across that you think we should be on the lookout for? It can be someone that we are all exposed to, or it can be someone that we are still to meet, but you have met and you feel they deserve to be put out there.
Sure. Can I not do that one
Okay.
for fear of coming all kinds of accusations of not
Yeah.
having
No,
named
no,
so
no.
and so? So I'd rather not do it because then on my timeline I'll get all kind. Why didn't you mention me? So I think
Yeah,
every
no.
talent that you find along the way, please try identify it and help give it a stage. What we try as the Nelson Mandela Foundation is to actually give them a stage in our platforms. All our platforms, we give them a stage to perform, to do whatever they have as a talent.
Someone says you look like a Sister Bettina fan. What is your favorite Kwaito song? You look like a Sister Bettina kind of thing. Oh, wow.
Actually, Morwa is the song that I've been listening to recently, and the song that today I woke up with was "The Storm Is Over," because of
Yes, apologies, we got cut off whilst having our chat with the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Mr. Sello Hatang. And so as soon as he's back online, we will continue with our chat. Just to wrap up the conversation that we were having with him. Because I think it was quite interesting. He was still telling us about his favorite music, because he was being accused of being a Sister Bettina kind of fan. So let's hear from him. Very humble guy, but sophisticated in his thinking. And I'd like to continue the conversation with him. I hope he'll come back soon so that we can continue the conversation. There, he's back. Our conversation can continue from where we left off. And just to discover more. Welcome back, my brother. Apologies.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Thank you very
No
much. Sure.
problem.
So you're still telling me about the storm is
So I
over.
was saying, yeah, because of the last few days, the losses that one has had, and the country that it's just to keep lifting one's spirit. So there's a song. I actually just know that it has TD Jakes at the end, and it's "The Storm Is Over." That's what I woke up to this morning.
No, that's good. That's good. And when was the last time you took public transport and not Gautrain? You know, the last time I had a conversation with someone, I said public transport, and they referred me to Gautrain. When was the last time you took public transport as we know it? You're from Klerksdorp, I'm from Mamelodi. When we grew up, there was no Gautrain. When?
You know, one of the last times I took public transport was in Kuma,
Okay.
where I took Tambai. You know, these the local small taxis,
Yeah.
So I took I took that. This could have been 2000 and 2015.
Yeah.
I had decided to just take a walk to retrace my steps as a child. So I walked for over 40 Ks that day, where I walked to Moibank. Those who come from Kuma will know this. I walked to Moibank, from Moibank back up to Margaret, the mine, a local Stelfontein mine, and then I walked to my sister's place. and from my sister's place, go 9. From 9, I then walked and took a taxi back home
that's
because I
nice.
was finished, proper finished. There was nothing left in me now. I just thought this was harder than climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So I jumped into this taxi, and something incredible happened. The taxi, it was an old Audi 500, I think it was called. Remember those old Audis, old, like really
Yeah.
finished, tatters. There's hardly any car. You can see as the car is moving, you can see the ground.
Yeah, I know that one is finished. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was finished. So I get in and it tore my pants
Mm,
and also tore my underpants, by the way.
okay.
So
And they dealt with
my undies were
dealt with you
also.
proper.
It dealt with me properly. I got home and I showed my mom and said, you see, this is the last time I'll join a taxi again, because this is what happens when you try local,
Yeah, no.
as it were. And that's how I then didn't try again with the taxi. Being an archivist that I am, that underwear I still have, torn as it is, because I keep it there to remind myself of the last time I actually drove I last time drove the taxi.
No. I would not have kept the underwear. I'm just putting it out there. I would not have kept the underwear.
Well, when you visit me in my house, I'll visit you. I'll invite you for a glass of something in my house. I promise not to give you oros if it's not your choice drink. I will then at least show you that. Of course, my wife won't agree to that, but I'll try show you that to say this is the Andy I'm talking about.
Why does it sound like this Andy is framed somewhere in some living room?
Don't put ideas in my mind. I might just do exactly
You put it on
that.
the same wall you painted grapes.
You are bad. You are
When I
really
come
bad.
through, what I'll bring, look, we'll have oros when we start off, but I'll bring a 6-pack of Mamelodi Lager. How's that for supporting local?
Yeah, well, please do bring Mamelodi Lager, and I know Marukwane, my dear brother Tiamo, will be happy to hear you say that, because Marukwane is a big Mamelodi fan, not just Mamelodi Sundowns, but Mamelodi itself. Like I said, I lived in Mamelodi for so long, so anything from Mamelodi I love.
No, that's good. No, but thank you very much, my brother, for your time, for the conversation, for the chat. We are eternally grateful as proudly South African that you agreed to speak to us. Very insightful conversation. I mean, you gave us more than what I thought we would get. I mean, with my chats, I never go beyond the 60 minutes that Insta. This is the first time out of all the chats I've had. Happy, on the other hand, goes over the 60 minutes. It tells you who's more of a talker. But she's a communicator. She's a marketer. I'm an accountant.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't talk that much. But it's testament to the fact that the conversation was flowing, and I enjoyed tapping into your insights. And I see that the benefit as well that we got from talking to you is that Mr. Ashraf Gada, the champion South African, has agreed to have a similar conversation with us. During this conversation, I saw that there was Nebashelana live. Me and you are busy to each other, proposing conversations between him and my team. And I see he's agreed. So thank you very much, Mr. Ashraf Gada, for agreeing to do it. But it's thanks to you, my brother. If we had not had the conversation with
Thank you.
we would not have been able to access the champion South African. So we are grateful for your time and for the foundation for allowing you to have a conversation with us this afternoon.
No, thank you so much for this opportunity. Just quickly passing on the Zolabad. I was happy. Yes, I have been in a Zolabad. My first car was a Mazda 323. Which I actually tried to give it a bit of, by saying it's a Mazda 3. And then when someone says, no, but that's a 323, I said, I put a comma, dude.
You're still coming.
It's a Mazda 323. So there's always a pause. you know, it dombolo, yeah, dombolo.
So that's why you like down. So
So
you're a
it,
dombolo kind of person.
but one of my mentors, Leon Vessels, liked saying that when you get in your car shouldn't give you class, you should give it status. So the car should feel proud
To
to
have
have
you.
you instead.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's why I did own at some point I owned a biggish kind of Audi, and at the moment I just drive a Corsa.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very. Yeah, I saw the question that said, "What
Yeah.
do we drive?" What was my first car as well? What was your first car? So you went there. I tried to sidestep it and avoid it, but I see you went there. Yeah. No, that's very humbling. I see you do live up to your. I don't know whether it's your mantra or not. That you're simplistic in life, but you're sophisticated in your thinking and your approach. I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind.
I try.
When people hear me saying it, they'll think it's
Yeah,
mine.
of course.
Those who are on the call, Papa, and put it out there that I got it from you.
And out you. No, thank you so much. I loved this conversation, and I wasn't sure when Tiama asked me. I was like, "Oh, Batum, what am I gonna do with this thing?" And you're gonna ask me difficult questions. Said, "No, just it's an easy Friday." So thank you so much for the conversation. I enjoyed every
No, thank
second
you
of
very
it.
much. I think in the 4 years that I've been in this job, there are moments that I treasure. And I think this is one of those. I'm really grateful.
Oh
Thank
wow,
you, my
thank
brother.
you.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you so much. Ke a leboga. Thanks, my
Thanks,
brother.
my brother.
Have a good
You too.
one. Have a
Thank
good
you. Thank you
weekend.
guys for tuning in.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.